Okay, this is Proverbs 10, part 3. So, is this working? Or can I have the next slide? Obviously, this is not playing ball with me today. Fantastic. What we've learned so far throughout Proverbs is that, first of all, they're a good way of how we should conduct ourselves. Also shows where we fall short. They're not promises for the now, because we will be discouraged a lot of the time. They're promises for eternity. In Hebrew they don't rhyme. They come in pairs. There is 4 main ways they are phrased. One gives you a reason, which is the least used. Something is happening because or for. There's a lot more comparative, which usually starts in like or as, and then you put both together. Some show the same concept twice, and most of them are opposites. So that's as far as we got. It's working now good. So what have we learned so far? In the first part of Proverbs, the first 9 chapters, there was a lot of talk about the fool and the wisdom. Now it's changed to the righteous and the wicked. It's stepped up slightly. But also knowing that as much as we like to be righteous, we're not always the righteous one. And very often we find ourselves in the wrong camp. The only righteous one really was Jesus. And the word righteous actually means justified. And he justified us to become righteous. So there's a huge gospel message within Proverbs that he points to Jesus, who's paid for us. And we have become righteous as a result. So while there are very good advice how we should live as Christians, there's the knowledge that actually we can't do it on our own. Proverbs are also all over the place. So they're not nicely niched. A bit like real life is. And I want to keep it that way. I'm not going to sort of order them up. We're going to go as they come. So far we have spoken a lot about laziness, right? And one of the stuff that came up last time was don't do things half-heartedly. Like only put half a hand into it. Either go all in or don't bother. Right? If you want to do something, go in. If you go in half-heartedly, we are actually being lazy. There was a lot of stuff about actually how we conduct ourselves to others, what legacy we leave behind. There's the saying in the real world is people won't always remember our decisions. They remember how we made them feel. Right? So it's how we conduct ourselves. It also means actually, and there's one thing that's important here, being kind, nice, doesn't mean you're a pushover. Okay? There is a difference. And I'll cover that a bit later. It's actually being nice and kind in difficult conversations. Right? And even when what you say is not palatable. Important to listen to other people's points of view. As much as we like to think so, we are not always right. Okay? And then a notion that actually hatred destroys, anger destroys, but love covers everything. And we sort of link it in with 1 Corinthians 13. Love is patient, love is kind. It doesn't envy. It doesn't boast. It's not proud. It doesn't dishonor others. It's not self-seeking, not easily angered. Keeps no records of wrongs. Does not delight in evil, but rejoices with the truth. Always protects, always trusts, always hopes, always perseveres. So that's as far as I thought we got. Actually, I think we got 3 verses further, so we'll do those 3 verses again, but it can't hurt. So we'll carry on verse 13. That works with me? No? Can I have the next one? Thank you. Verse 13. Wisdom is found in the lips of the discerning, but the rod is for the back of one who has no sense. The most important thing is the Hebrew says wisdom can be found on the lips of the discerning. So it's something that's readily available as long as we search for it. The thing is, we've got to search for it. The one who has no sense, the Hebrew calls that chaser lev, which means missing his heart. Okay? So he has got no heart. Heart of stone, as Paul sort of referred to just a minute ago. They have got no feelings. They don't care what they do. They don't care about the outcomes. That's sort of one who has no sense. So quite a strong picture, if you like. 14 goes to the wise store up knowledge, but the mouth of a fool invites ruin. Let's think before we speak, okay? Think before we make decisions, right? Sometimes people pressure us into making decisions. Usually we make the wrong ones in that case, okay? So sometimes taking a step back and waiting and isn't a bad thing, because the opposite is have no thought, will speak. Blah. Verbal diarrhea, if you like. And they don't actually care what they say. They don't care what the outcome is, who they hurt, and how reckless that is. So it's always worth actually taking a step back and thinking, what am I achieving here? What am I doing here? What's going to the outcome be? Am I actually going to achieve what I want to achieve, what I'm going to say now? Okay. And actually we finished with that last time. The wealth of the rich is their fortified city, but the poverty is the ruin of the poor. Okay? And it's a really stark picture about how the wealthy can actually sort of cocoon themselves in. And I think if you go to sort of certain parts of Hollywood and things where you see all these big mansions where people cocoon themselves in with guards and all the like. And then you've got the other side, you've got the struggles of the poor. And really, even though we might not be in a fortress, while we have a responsibility to provide for those less fortunate than us. Okay? And the Bible keeps on about that responsibility to look after the poor, look after the widows, look after those who have no voice. Okay? There is this picture in Matthew 25 about the goats and the sheep. Jesus sends the goats away and keeps the sheep. And to one he says, because you have fed me when I was hungry, you gave me drink when I was thirsty, you clothed me when I was cold, I was a stranger, you invited me in, you came and visited me in prison, you came and visited me in hospital. And both said, when did we actually do that? And the answer to both is, what you did or didn't do to the least of my brothers, i.e. us, you did for me. So every time we do something for a fellow human being, we do it for Jesus. Every time we don't or diss somebody who's a fellow human being, we do that to Jesus too. That's quite a sort of somber sort of thought. Actually, how do we treat others? There's a book by John Ortberg called Everybody is Normal Till You Get to Know Them. Everybody is normal till you get to know them. And he starts his book off by a picture of his daughter who's got this rag doll. And this rag doll is in a bit of a state. Right? You can't see where it once was anymore, it's that bad. And he's desperate to throw it away and give her a new one. But it doesn't happen because she wants the old one. She loves the old one, the new one just won't do. And when he did that, God spoke to him and said, look, That's how I see you. You are those ragdolls. And that's how I love you. I don't want a new one, I want you. But he also said, if you love me, you need to love my ragdolls. Because if you don't love those ragdolls, how can you love me? If we don't love our fellow human beings, how can we say we love God? Because we are made in his image. Right, verse 16. Is it working good? The wages of the righteous is life, the earnings of the wicked are sin and death. The word wages in Hebrew is operation, or operate. Not in terms of surgery, but in terms of function, right? In terms of produce. Military operation. That's the word it uses. But also in modern Hebrew, that's where we get manufacturing or a factory from. It's the same word. So really the produce, what you produce as a righteous, you produce life. Jesus produced life for us. And obviously the earnings of the wicked, the produce of their work, is hell, death. And Jesus pulled us up from there. Going hand with 17. Whoever heeds discipline shows the way of life. Whoever ignores correction leads others astray. The word heeds in Hebrew is guards. Whoever guards. So that's an active thing. You guard something. You make sure it's there. You guard discipline. You guard, shows the way of life. The word it uses is length of life. So if I say I walk the length of the Silky Way, let's say, the Hebrew meaning is from beginning to end. Okay, all of it. So whoever heeds his discipline shows all of life, from beginning to end. And we know that Jesus showed all of life to us, given us all of life, because we've got life everlasting. That's his promise. On the other side, though, and that's really frightening, I think, whoever ignores correction leads others astray. Wow. That is really, really powerful. So it's not just if I do wrong, I do it to myself. If I do wrong, what's the impact of what I'm doing to other people? I actually may be leading them astray. That frightens me, I must confess, that frightens me actually. There's one thing taking responsibility for what I'm doing to myself. If then I take the responsibility, what am I doing to others? That's quite powerful. So it's very important, and Beth did pray earlier that once we become Christians, people look at us, people watch us, right? And if we do things which are wrong, people will think it's okay because he does it or she does it, and they are these brilliant Christians, and if they can do that, it's okay. It's very careful how we actually, what examples we set. Moving on to 18. Whoever conceals hatred with lying lips and spreads slander is a fool. Now the word spread slander is actually pulling out. So whoever pulls out. So a bit like a magician pulling out a rabbit from a hat, right? Whoever pulls out slander. Just shows slander is an illusion. Slander isn't real. Slander is painting a picture of somebody which may not be accurate, but may make other people's opinion of that person worse because of what is said. But it may not be true, so it's an illusion. But even more, in the Hebrew, the blessing of bread actually says, "Blessed are you, Lord, who pulls bread out of the earth." That's the Jewish blessing for bread. Who pulls out, God who pulls out bread from the earth. Now we all know that's not how bread is made. It's actually quite a hard process, especially in those times. But the picture here is while God brings out of the earth bread and life, the slanderer, his harvest, is illusions and lies. So we need to be very careful what we say of other people and how we make them look in front of others. And it also goes saying is one thing I try to do in my other life is I will never challenge somebody in an open forum. Okay? Because it usually doesn't lead to the end result you want, but also, especially if they're superior, they usually don't really like that too much. I challenge in the background. And it goes with that when we actually together, do we challenge each other in front of other people? Do we have a go at each other in front of other people? Especially husbands and wives here. Do we actually talk the other half down in front of other people? Because we shouldn't do that. That's left for when we are on our own. And the other thing by actually sin is not ended by multiplying words. There's this thing of thou protestest too much, right? People talk and talk and talk and talk, and so after a while we say, have you got a problem with that, you know? I read this morning Peter in the courts of the Sanhedrin while Jesus was in there being questioned, and he denied Jesus three times, and every time worse and worse and worse. That's a good example of thou protestest too much. He actually didn't think what he was saying. The protesting was so much important that he actually went Bleh. And then as soon as the I think he crowed twice, three times, not twice. He remembered, oh, verbal diarrhea, thou protestest too much. I really messed up here. So sometimes too many words the tongue of the righteous is choice silver. The heart of the wicked is of little value. Luke 6 says, out of the overflow of the heart, the mouth speaks. Okay? Now if your heart isn't intent on good, right, what comes out of your mouth won't be good. Therefore the heart of the wicked is of little value. But if your heart is good, what comes out of your mouth is good. And then it becomes choice silver. The lips of the righteous nourish many. The word is using when we say Jehovah Jireh, God the provider. That's the word it uses. The lips of the righteous will provide for many. So it's that sort of picture of God providing, the righteous one being Jesus providing. Okay? And the fool dies of lack of sense. The lack of sense again is that missing his heart, the heartless person. So if your heart is bad, if you've got a heart of stone, if you're heartless, that'll kill you in the long run, because destiny isn't going to be great. We're going to move on to 23. A fool finds pleasure in wicked scheme. The ESV actually changed that to for a fool doing wrong is like a joke. Okay, he thinks it's funny. So there's no regard, they don't care about the consequences. It's all me, as long as I'm alright. Whatever happens around me doesn't really matter. Right? Whereas the consequences of somebody with understanding, who delights in wisdoms, is good decisions. It's applying the knowledge. It's actually leading others the right way. It's showing them where the good path. It's showing them how you're supposed to live. It's showing them the way to the Lord and to eternal life. There's a difference. What the wicked dread will overtake them. What the righteous desire will be granted. That's a self-fulfilling prophecy here. Okay? The wicked know, they will know they're wicked, and they're scared sometimes. And sometimes when we do the wrong thing, we look over our shoulder. Has anybody seen this? Does anybody know? Does anybody? So, if we know we do wrong, why go there? Why go to a situation where we have to look over our shoulders? Because ultimately we reap what we sow, and what the righteous desire will be granted. And food is often quite a big thing in the Bible of festivals, of joy, of good things, and Jesus speaks about a banquet in heaven, right, where we will not go without. So sort of our desire will be granted eternally by being righteous, doing the right thing, trusting God. Which then goes hand in hand with the next one. When the storm has swept away, the wicked are gone, but the righteous stand firm forever. Actually, what the Hebrew says, when the storm has swept away, there won't be any wicked anymore. Simply, they won't exist. It's not that they are gone, blotted out of memory, like clearing your cache on your computer, like a reboot, not there anymore. Okay, completely forgotten. But the righteous are the foundation of eternity. The oak tree is often seen as this, as a symbol of the righteous men in the Old Testament. And Jesus is the ultimate oak tree, if you like, because He is the foundation of eternity. He made it happen. Okay, and on that we rely. 27. The fear of the Lord adds length to life. We heard earlier in Proverbs, the fear of the Lord is what? The fear of the Lord is... Some people can read the Bible. Good to know. The fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom. Okay? The fear of the Lord adds length to life. The years of the wicked are cut short. We know that bit because we know where they're going. The prospect of the righteous is joy. The hopes of the wicked come to nothing. Now we are meant to store up treasures in heaven. Okay, that'll be our joy. What we do will give us treasures in heaven. What's on earth is temporary. The hopes of the wicked are usually temporary. They're on goals here, and you know what? What you got here, you can't take with you. What you've got here will stay here. And what the Hebrew here says, the hopes of the wicked will be lost. Okay? The picture there is, they may have it, but they will be lost because they stay here. And the way of the Lord is a refuge for the blameless, but it's the ruin of those who do evil. I want to focus on the first half here. The way of the Lord. Jeremiah 16 says, stand ye at the crossroad and look. Ask for the ancient path. Ask where the good way is and walk in it. And you will find a rest for your soul. It's up to us to find the good way. It's up to us to find a good way with His help. Stand there and ask for it. Right? Where am I going, Lord? Is this the right way? Sometimes the Bible will tell us and we know. We don't actually have to ask, we know. Okay? But it's good to ask sometimes, where is the right way? Where do you want me to go? Because if we walk in the way of the Lord, that way becomes a refuge for the blameless. Then when we go to Psalm 91, whoever dwells in the shelter of the Most High will rest in the shadow of the Almighty. I will say of the Lord, He is my refuge and my fortress, my God in whom I trust. What was that? 30 goes back to before the righteous will never be uprooted. They will stay there. And we will not be uprooted because Jesus died for us. And the wicked will not remain in the land. Now, there is a Jewish concept of God dwelling with his people. Okay? And once he stopped dwelling with them and they were sent to exile, there's that hope of God returning his dwelling to Jerusalem. That's one of their prayers. And the word they use for there is the same that it uses here for the wicked not remaining in the land. They will not dwell in the land. And then that word is what we now use for neighbor or neighborhood in Hebrew. So it's a close living together, not happening to live in the same town. It's actually living in close community. So while we live in close community with God, the wicked will not have a place there. They will be banished. Okay? They will lose the right of being in relationship. So the final two verses. From the mouth of the wicked comes the fruit of wisdom, but the perverse tongue will be silenced. The lips of the righteous know what finds favour, but the mouth of the wicked only what is perverse. The word perverse, the Hebrew uses the word opposite. Right? So opposite to righteousness. Whoever is not righteous is the opposite. And the opposite covers anything that is not righteous. So anything wicked, anything that is corrupt, is harmful, is sinful, deceitful, destructive, is the opposite. It's what the English calls perverse. And yet, from the mouth of the righteous comes the fruit of wisdom. They know how to find favour. And actually, Jesus spoke with authority. He spoke with wisdom. And we're often told in the Bible that they were amazed at his wisdom, and nobody could argue with that. They sent people in time and time again to challenge him or ask him awkward question. And he'd come back with something. And they just had to walk away because there's nothing they could say. Right? And being encouraging and uplifting, showing empathy and understanding, being in integrity. Again, as I said earlier, it doesn't mean that we are pushovers. It means we conduct ourselves correctly. Bearing in mind we're speaking to another human being who's made in the image of God. Now, I had the unfortunate job a few years ago of having to dismiss a few people. Now, anybody who tells me that A, that's an easy thing to do, and B, they're happy doing it, I can tell you I'm not righteous because it's not the nicest thing you have to do. Now, it may be completely justified, but you're still sitting in a room telling somebody they've lost their job, they've lost their livelihood, they've lost everything. And being able to do that in a way which is uplifting, encouraging, with integrity and showing empathy. It's not an easy thing to do, especially if you're not doing it by letter but face to face. Okay? And then walking out, shaking your hand. That is knowing that you've acted correctly. So sometimes being encouraging, uplifting is not doing the nicey stuff, but it's doing the hard stuff, but doing it with integrity, doing it with empathy, showing that you actually have taken their point of view into consideration, that you understand where they're at as well. And it just goes around the internet a lot, is before you speak, think. Is what you say true, helpful, inspiring, necessary or kind? And that's not, again, that's in the phase of actually having to say things which are not palatable, but saying them in that way. Are you actually truthful, or is it slander? Is what you bring also helpful? Okay? Does it add value, or do you just destroy for the sake of it? Can you be inspiring even when the message isn't that great? Is it all necessary? Okay? When you have kids, the first thing you learn is choose your battles. Now, I'm not always good at that, I've got to confess, even now, but choose your battles is something like, because you won't win everything. But he's also kind. Now, kind, encouraging, and comfort. Sometimes we misread those. Comfort, encouraging doesn't always mean tea and biscuits. And you have done by no. That's not always the right thing to do either. Okay? Now, one of my catchphrases, which probably in this day and age are frowned upon, is man up. Okay? Apparently man up in this day and age is not something you should be saying. But the Bible is full of that. The Bible very rarely goes, no, and you have done by. The Bible very often goes, man up and get on with it. But you've got to find a way of saying that people actually will take encouragement from that and go and get on with it, rather than sulking. And the actual meaning of comfort is to come with strength, is to add strength, right? And if all you're doing is tea and biscuits and you have done by, you might not be adding much strength to them. They might feel even worse because then they get too much sympathy and then live on sympathy for the rest of their lives. Sometimes you've got to be able to actually do to the adding strength, telling them to crack on. We've got to find ways that it will actually crack on. And the Bible's full of that. God's very well is very good in telling people to crack on, and them cracking on. We've got to learn how to do it. I'm not always getting that right. We'll say from one, but it's something we need to check and we need to review, because how we interact with each other is so important. How we leave that room, how they leave that room, and what they do afterwards is a result of actually how we interact with them. So let's be really, really, really careful on that. And that concludes Proverbs 10. So Lord, I just thank you for your words. Thank you for, first of all, saving us. Thank you for being the righteous one who paved the way so that we can be righteous, regardless of actually all the sins we have committed or where we are at. Lord, help us to live a better life. Lord, help us to actually live a life that is more Christ-like. I know we will mess up, but Lord, just help us to become closer and closer to you every day that we live. Lord, I pray that we learn to look at each other with love, that we learn to look at each other with compassion, and no matter what the messages we have to convey to other human beings, let us do so with integrity, with compassion, with empathy, and let them be uplifting rather than destroying. Lord, I ask that it's your Spirit that will help us do that. We ask in your name. Amen.